Hello there ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paul TX14 Walsh and welcome to my final video for 2018. With 2019 on the horizon, I thought I'd do something different and showcase some ace tanker gameplay for the realistic mode of War Thunder. Our chosen vehicle is the T-72A, the newly introduced Tier 6 battle rated 9.3 Soviet main battle tank, or MBT, as of update 1.85, which Gaijin have kindly given me the keys to over the Christmas period. Keeping in mind that I do not normally play ground forces that often, I do not intend to provide a review of the vehicle in this video. Instead, I will discuss the approach I used in the gameplay, a domination match on the map surrounding Volodymyr, and following the gameplay, I intend to give a quick channel update in terms of what my highlights have been for 2018 and what you can expect from me in 2019. Without further ado, let's get to it. As we load into the match and look at the spawn point cost for our vehicle, 130 means this is a battle rating 9.7 match. And as a result of that, as we're typically up against Britain and America, we'll not be seeing the American IPM-1 or the M1 Abrams, but we'll be seeing the XM-1s and the XM-803s. As for the British, we'll be seeing the likes of the Challenger Mark III and the Chieftain Mark X. All very capable vehicles that can knock out our vehicle in a single hit if they get it right, but perhaps not as lethal as the IPM-1 in particular, where it's very strong mobility, and on top of that it's fast firing 105mm cannon, which has the ability to get off a shell every 5 seconds when fully spec'd, if I remember correctly. Whereas with our reloader, IR autoloader, we'll have the ability to get a shell off a 125mm shell every 7.1 seconds. So we don't have to be worried as much about our opposition's capabilities, particularly their ability to get into a very forward position at the start of the game, but our overall tactic will be to use mobility to encircle the Bravo objective. The idea being that we're going to push along the northern flank and try to gradually make our way round into the northwestern corner of objective Bravo and then envelop the enemy team that's decided to push that objective, at the same time cutting off the supply line of the enemy's northwestern spawn in terms of vehicles being pumped into the objective, and that way we deal a double blow. Taking objective Bravo, crushing the enemy force there, and pushing the enemy team that comes in the northwestern corner of the map all the way back into that northwestern spawn. And I anticipate that the enemy team will try to counter us in the same fashion by moving along this flank in order to cut off our team's ability to feed vehicles into Bravo via our northeastern spawn. So it'll be a race to see who dominates this side of the map first. As we make our way along, do keep in mind that the T-72A you're seeing here is fully upgraded in terms of all the modules being researched. I do not have a fully spec crew, that's as a result of me not playing ground forces enough, but the experience you are going to see here will be somewhat different from those who are trying to upgrade this vehicle currently, particularly with regards to our shell choice. We're taking only the 3BM15 armour piercing fin stabilised discarding Sabo shell, or APFSDS for short, whereas stock you get the 3BM9 shell from what I remember, and having used that shell a number of times, I found that it's a decent shell with its high muzzle velocity of 1,800 meters per second, but with its limited penetration going up to, if I remember correctly, 310mm at point blank range on a 0° angle plate. That penetration can be somewhat lacking, particularly when you're facing the front of an IPM-1 and instead you have to aim for weak spots or try to get the side of the enemy vehicle. Therefore, you can still take out vehicles in a single shot with that shell type, but you'll have to aim for the weak spots at the front, and that can prove annoying when your foe is going to be fighting from a hull down position. And that's one of the downsides with the T-72A, in that its poor gun depression compared to its American and British adversaries over the front of the vehicle means it's not well suited for battling over small ridge lines. And therefore when you only get a shot on your foe's turret, they'll typically have the turret armour in order to shrug off the 3BM9 shell and even the 3BM15 shell in the case of your higher battle rating opposition. Here we're going to try and focus on getting the engagement to occur from level ground, or from a position where we're looking over the top of our opponent and therefore we can shoot down into their armour, mitigating the ability to use slope against us. And for reference, the 3BM15 shell, the fully upgraded one, has a much higher penetration factor. To give you an example, on a flat plate at 1 km, you'll be going through 410mm of armour, and we're going to exhibit that against an XM1 here. We're going to shoot down into the upper front plate, and you'll see that the shell is actually going to skid off of the plate and into the turret ring. 1 kill. Then we go for the reload here, and we can see just how quickly the shell travels to the target, with its muzzle velocity of 1,780 meters per second, 20 meters per second less than the 3BM9 shell. Not too much of an issue. But we just take a massive hit, and we're not sure where from. Now, watching the replay of this back, what's quite funny to note is the opponent that hit me was an XM1 only approximately 100 meters away, just off to my right hand side behind the tree here. I did not realise at the time, as a friendly Leopard A1A1 L44 takes the XM1 out of the game, but this is something I have difficulty with in ground forces in general. I can see targets at extreme ranges. I have the ability to see targets out to say 3 kilometers, whereas other players would think that it's a bush or it's just a rock. I'll see those foes. But put someone 500 meters away from me or even closer, pretty much right next to me, breathing onto me, and I can't tell they're there. I seem to have this ability to not be able to see opponents who are staring me right in the face. And it may be the case as we're watching this video right now back, that you'll say to me in the comments section, how did you not see that XM1 at point blank range? And I'll just shrug my shoulders and go, I just didn't see it. So that's something I need to work on if I do really want to get back into ground forces. Now, we were fortunate in terms of our survivability there, because you'll note the shell that did hit us was most likely armor piercing fin stabilised disguising Sabo, but it went into the side of our vehicle, the right hand side, and literally went all the way through into our engine and took out our left hand track, which meant that we did not take critical damage and we were not instantly knocked out. One of the issues with the T-72A's survivability is you only have a crew of 3, and 2 of those crew members are in the turret. A very quick way to taking out this vehicle is to get a shell into the side of the turret, because it will go across the turret and kill 2 crew members and instantly knock the vehicle out. Alternatively, if you want to frustrate a T-72A, just simply aim for the cannon breech, because it's exposed and easily broken. And here we see the rear of an XM1, so we fire into the back of its turret, killing the available crew in there, the gunner and loader, and knocking out the cannon breech as well. That's our second kill. Now we move down the hill to continue the encirclement of Objective Bravo. The idea being here that once we make our way around, we can start to cut off the spawn from this objective as mentioned earlier, and we can start to pick off foes who are trying to charge their way towards the objective, particularly off of a respawn or if they've been sat further back so far. We look at the minimap and see that an enemy vehicle is being engaged north of Bravo, multiple teammates are engaging them, and we do not want to get involved unless that vehicle decides to retreat further westwards, and then we'll be shooting it in the back effectively. But for now it looks as though our teammates have got it under control, so we'll keep pressing forward. We see an enemy vehicle come along, it's a Magak, we aim into the side, and we blow them up by taking out their ammunition rack on the left hand side of the hull. Third kill. And we can see just how quickly you can acquire a target with a 125mm gun and just blow them away with a single shell. And one thing to keep in mind is, because you're firing Sabo, unless you aim for specific weak points in the side of an enemy vehicle, such as where an ammo rack would be located, or where the driver would be, or where the engine would be, sometimes the shell can literally go on one side and out the other without doing considerable damage. And the issue is, when you do that, sometimes at point blank range, your opponent's then able to react whilst they're on fire, for example, and they can put a shell into you and knock you out the game. So you really need to know what you're up against and where to shoot to get the most out of the gun. If you're shooting an opponent frontally or from the rear, it's a lot simpler perhaps, simply because you have the ability for your shell to literally go in one side of the vehicle, carve its way through all the modules inside the enemy vehicle and then out the other side. Whereas side shots, as what we saw earlier when we got hit by an XM1, will not always guarantee good results, simply because it may be the case you aim for the wrong spot, the shell goes in and goes out the other side. It does damage, but nowhere near enough in order to ensure the kill. Now, as we make our way through the encirclement procedure, we looked over towards our right hand side and didn't see any enemy vehicles coming across, so perhaps the enemy teams decide they do not want to use that northwestern spawn to push into Objective Bravo, so instead we're just going to carry on moving forward. Now you'll note that I've expended all of my smoke grenades, i.e. the ones located in the turret of the vehicle, and that was to give myself some cover when I had to go through the repair procedure, because having a stock crew means that my repair times, even for minimal hits, is going to take excruciatingly long compared to a fully spec'd crew. And we only had to repair the engine on the left hand track and that took almost a minute. Nonetheless, in moving forward at this point, we're now going to make our way around to the rear of Objective Charlie, the objective in the middle of the map, in the same approach. We want to try and cut off the enemy's feed into the western side of Objective Charlie. This gives an indication of the overall mobility of the T-72A on snowy terrain. You can see that the vehicle moves quite comfortably. We can see that when I'm having difficulty in controlling the vehicle, turning it on the spot. And when I say on the spot, I mean turning it as we're making our way through the middle of trees. If we do want to turn it on the spot as well, it can do so rather nicely. One thing to keep in mind with this vehicle, however, is that its reversing speed is rather atrocious. If I remember correctly, it's a maximum of 4 km an hour in reverse. So you never really want to be reversing this vehicle as such, because if you do, it's going to take a painstakingly long time. And here we're going to be looking back across, because we can see some gunfire going across, or we thought we could see some gunfire. Turns out it's artillery shells impacting on a small hill in front of us. And what we're realising is that artillery is being called by our team for a reason. There's probably an enemy vehicle here which is being pushed back towards us, so we're going to try and get into the way of it. We're expecting our team perhaps to light something up. We see an XM1 has just taken out a friendly Leopard A1A1, and with it being reasonably close, we're just going to peer over this hill here to see if we can find the enemy assailant. And there it is, back of the turret. We're going to go for the ammo rack this time. Get a little bit closer, and away. Pop. And that's kill number 4. Now we can see there, because we knew where the ammo was, we could cook off the ammo, but on top of that, the shell went all the way through, knocked out a crew member, which was the actual reason why we got the kill in the end, and we also took out the cannon breach. So if we hadn't been able to kill the enemy crew member and just achieve the kill then, we would have broken the cannon breach and we could have pursued that XM1 and put another shell in before it would have been too late. And again, that comes back to the concept of knowing what you're hitting in terms of where you need to aim. It may be the case with Sabo, you're not going to kill the enemy vehicle automatically, but you need to be able to cripple them to a point so that they cannot retaliate, because it literally is the case at this battle rating I've found that one shot is death. And if you get it wrong, it's going to prove frustrating. If you get it right, it's going to feel absolutely fantastic. So you want to make sure you get it right before your enemy does. Now moving forward, it looks our team is dominating now the centre of the map. The enemy team may be sending some resources back into Bravo as they realise this, but it looks like the momentum has heavily swung in our team's favour. We are making our way now down towards the enemy team's southwestern spawn. Now this is not to spawn camp as such, or spawn kill, but it's to again lock off that spawn and also see what's coming, because there's a very nice hill that overlooks that southwestern spawn, which means we'll be able to peer over it using binocular view without giving away the position of our vehicle and see what's coming out of that spawn. We also haven't seen too many enemy aircraft so far, and we do have to keep that in mind. They may spawn in aircraft and start dropping bombs and rockets on us, or God forbid a helicopter decides to focus us. Helicopters are the bane of my existence at the moment. But nonetheless, that's not a complaint about them. I just find every time that I see a helicopter in the skies, it always wants to aim at me, but I'm sure you've all experienced that yourselves. Making our way forward, again, this is a reflection of the mobility of the T-72A and the fact that we're just casually chewing through the ground here. Perhaps if we're in an IPM1 at a battle rate of 10.0, we'd be doing it faster. I can't complain exactly about the mobility here. It's very nice, and we're just able to cover this ground with relative ease. Now of course, if we were using main roads, we would move faster. And looking at the kill feed just now, a Sheridan has taken out one of our Leopard A1A1s north of Objective Bravo. So it does look as though the enemy team are starting to build resources, whether they be limited or en masse, up towards Objective Bravo once again, and we'll react to that if we see multiple friendlies start to die off in that region, because we do still have effectively 4 friendly vehicles all located up on the northern half of the map, albeit they're now starting to make their way out towards the west, some of them may be turning to go up towards that northwestern spawn. And what you can see here is I'm just simply changing my directionality a little bit in case somebody's following my track lines, and the idea behind this is that way I can make it onto the main road, build up a little bit of speed, and then really close in on the southwestern spawn, and if I need to I can detour off the road. Also, by changing up my pattern every so often, if there's an enemy plane up in the sky that's looking for tank tracks, or they're looking for me, by constantly changing direction I reduce the likelihood of me being spotted. And looking at the team sheet, it only looks like there's 4 enemy vehicles available. Our team's capturing Objective Alpha at the moment, or attempting to, and there's no engagement going on there. So it may be the case that the 4 enemy vehicles remain, perhaps one of them soon spawn, perhaps it's an AA piece. We definitely know there's a Sheridan up towards Objective Bravo that's engaging our forces there, so that's one assailant known. It looks as though our enemy team's also it looks as though our team has spotted an enemy vehicle in the southeastern corner of the map. They just marked something out on the mini-map, i.e. just off to the east of Objective Alpha, so we may need to investigate that a little bit later. And overlooking the enemy's southwestern spawn here, we can't see anything located in that spawn. A Huey's just gone down, the UH-1C XM30, so maybe a new enemy vehicle coming in very shortly. Our team's taking Objective Alpha, and a lot of smoke is going up, so it's definitely worth investigating, because this southwestern spawn, well, there's nothing there. So as a result, we'll make our way over there very shortly. Now when I go to make my way over there, I am going to be deploying the ESS system, the engine smoke system. The idea behind this is, because the engine smoke system literally leads to you emitting smoke out of the back of the vehicle as you're driving along. Now you may be wondering, well, what practical use does this serve you when you're moving away from the southwestern enemy spawn? The idea is I want to cover my retreat away from that spawn, because imagine right now if the enemy team spawned in a vehicle there, and I'm going to be going along a hill direct to Alpha because I need to rush over there, and XM1 has just taken out 2 of our guys on that objective. If I decide to do this without running the smoke screen, then what it means is I'd have my back to any enemy vehicle that spawns in the southwestern spawn, particularly my turret as they look over the hill. And therefore if they get a shell into the back of the turret, I'm pretty much dead. I'm going to use this smoke screen to cover my move towards Alpha. Now I admit, it does give away the fact that I was recently in that position, or at least overlooking the southwestern spawn. But at the same time, it provides me the security to know that I can just rush towards Objective Alpha. I do not need to retreat into the tree line off to my left hand side to then cut across to Objective Alpha north of the objective. I can move in safely from the western side of that objective. And we can see that the ESS system lasts a considerable period of time in terms of smoke deployment, and we're also going to see that that smoke lasts a very long period of time, pretty much to the point that the ESS has reloaded to deploy the next charge. It stopped there, so it stops at around the quarter mark in the clockwise circle, but then the smoke lasts for a long period of time and gives you a nice amount of coverage. And we're just charging towards Objective Alpha. Another helicopter's gone down the enemy team, so expecting there's only going to be 1 or 2 vehicles. One of them is definitely at Alpha because it's capturing the point now, and it's most likely going to be that XM1. In terms of how I expect to approach this, I'm going to come in on the western side because I get the feeling that the enemy XM1, if they're going to move away from Alpha once they've captured it, because we're definitely not going to get there until it's been captured, they will react by moving eastwards. They wouldn't move back to the west because they'd be expecting a couple of our vehicles to be watching from the west simply because we'll be camping out their spawn. So instead, by coming in from the west, this will act as a means of countering their move towards the east. I'll be coming up on their rear. And it'll be the last thing they perhaps expect. So moving forward here, we move over the train tracks. We can see there's a nice little hill line directly in front of us, or a small ridge really, and we're going to use that to disguise our approach. Because if the XM1 wants to come this way, they've got 2 choices. They either come over the small ridge in front of us, or they come around to the right hand side. And with our vehicle having an absolutely lovely stabiliser, we see the XM1 immediately tried to come this way, but then has turned away. We missed our shell unfortunately, so we'll keep moving forward. Doesn't look as though the XM1's reacting to us coming here. Perhaps they didn't notice our shell being incoming. It looks as though our friendly jet did crash close to them, and perhaps that pushed them away, thinking that a bunch of bombs had been strapped to that jet, and they were trying to suicide bomb it into the tank. We'll just keep pushing forward. And what I'm expecting is, if the XM1's not looking this way, then they'll be looking over towards our friendly, who's coming from the eastern side. So they've come all the way down from our team's eastern spawn and moved all the way. And we can see just ahead of us, that's an XM1 in the distance. I'm just making sure there's nothing else here. Got the side of it, put one into the engine, set it on fire. Now here's the thing, didn't kill it in the first shot, so immediately the XM1 turns its turret and fires back, only hits our track line. We put a shell into the side of them, taking our time to make sure we get the shell in the right place, and we kill 3 of the crew members, knocking the vehicle out completely. And that is a key example of why you need to know where to aim on your opponent, because if you get it wrong, and I decided not to reverse there, and again I've got to repair my tracks now, and as a result that XM1 would have beaten me, simply because they would have put a shell into my vehicle with the time available to them, and it could have proved fatal. But I expected I wasn't going to get the first shot kill, so by pulling back I only exposed really my turret and my track line. They decided to go for the track line, it didn't work out. So that's our 5th and final kill for this game, and now just a little bit about covering my tracks. Because what I'm perhaps expecting is that XM1 player may now bring out an aircraft to try and take out some of our vehicles, including my own. And this is something typical I found in ground forces in the realistic mode, that once you've taken out somebody who's got a lot of spawn points available, they'll bring out an aircraft and immediately go for you because they'll know where you last were. And a lot of people have a tendency to stay within the same region simply because the vehicle mobility is not as fast as the mobility of the aircraft. So what I'm doing here, I'm engaging the ESS once again. And you'll see I'm actually going to create a small pocket for myself, because this little ridge line, which is off to my left hand side right now, has a very nice little depression in the middle of it. And what I can do is use the ESS to hide myself in this little depression. And if my opponent does want to try and bomb me, if they do bring out a plane, they've got to try and guess where I am in this smoke pocket. Or alternatively, they'll look outside it, thinking that I'm using the smoke as a diversion tactic. So I'm pretty much encircled in the smoke at this point. The only part that's not encircled is the ridgeline off to my right hand side. But then, if needs be, I can quickly go over that ridgeline to get clear. That means my opponent's got to come at a very specific angle in order to spot me. They've either got to come directly above, alternatively they've got to come off to this right hand side from my perspective. And whilst I'm letting this smoke go on, I'm just keeping an eye on the kill feed. We can see that Magac's been killed, and that was the person we killed in the XM1, which means that they're not bringing out an aircraft by the looks of things, and our team's pretty much dominated the map at this point. So nothing else is going to happen. I will gradually start making my way back towards the western side once again to cut off any approach from their southwestern spawn shortly, or the enemy southwestern spawn. But beyond that, that pretty much wraps up the game. And just as a little additional feature, one thing to note about the T-72A, it's a very nice little modelling feature, is that when you fire the gun on this vehicle, you'll see that the rearmost hatch on the turret actually opens to eject the spent casing of the shell. And I did try to showcase that at the end of this gameplay, but I got caught out by the end of game screen freeze that you sometimes get. So we're just going to quickly flick over to a test drive while I'll show you that feature in action. Otherwise we'll then move on to the post-game stats. With our 5 kills, we're able to pick up 28,885 silver lions and 5,744 research points. To summarise my experience of the T-72A beyond today's gameplay, in terms of all the other gameplays I've had, it's been a fun experience, but at the same time one that can be best described as a double-edged sword. The fun factor comes from the fact I'm able to play in the MBT, which if you said to me, what tank would you have on a poster in your bedroom tomorrow, it would be the T-72A. I love the appearance, the profile of this vehicle, and the 125mm main armament, and also the way it just tosses shells out the back after they've been expended. However, the double-edged sword nature comes in the fact that this vehicle is very powerful if used appropriately, because it has great mobility and a very good 125mm gun. But when you get a shot on your foe's side or rear armour in particular, if not for an exposed weak point on the front, you need to know where to aim in order to make sure you can eliminate your opposition in a single shot. Because if you cripple your foe but you don't eliminate them, it may be the case they're able to turn their turret and return fire, and if they get it right, they're higher than likely able to knock you out with a single shell. And even if they don't, they just simply aim for your cannon breech, there's a very high chance they'll incapacitate that, and then there's a follow-up shell only 5 to 7 seconds away, particularly when you're up against batter rate in 10-point tower position, and that will just knock you out of the game in a flash. One way of using this vehicle that can work very well is engage at long range, i.e. 2 km plus across flat land where depressions and that do not factor in as much, on a map such as Eastern Europe for example where there's a lot of open plains. And if you can get this vehicle into a slight hull down position where you're only exposing the turret and the upper front hull plate, it means that your survivability will increase drastically, so because when your foes fire their guns at you, they'll typically knock out your gun but not knock out the vehicle from the front of the turret, and in return you can do considerable damage whether you're aiming for weak spots or hitting the sides of vehicles as they're crossing the open terrain. Of course, knowing where to aim on an enemy vehicle is going to provide you with a greater rewards, but at the same time, with the 7.1 second reload on this 125mm in a sniping engagement, you can continuously throw out the shells and deal damage over time. But that wraps up my thoughts on this vehicle, and again, thank you to Gaijin for giving me the opportunity to test drive it. And so to conclude with a quick channel update, if I had to pick out my 3 main highlights for 2018, they would be as follows. Firstly, becoming a community helper for War Thunder, which aligned with my long-term aspiration of getting more involved with the game beyond YouTube. Secondly, the subsequent receival of an unexpected Christmas present from Gaijin in the form of a t-shirt as shown on screen now. And to provide the backstory behind this, I received this package 2 weeks before Christmas Day and it was addressed from Russia, and I thought to myself, who do I know in Russia? And at the time I couldn't think of anyone. It alarmed my parents somewhat in the fact they were receiving packages from all over the world at this point, because I know a number of people now, thanks to YouTube, whether it be in the States all the way across to Europe or wider continents. But a package from Russia, we didn't expect that whatsoever. And when I opened it on Christmas Day, I can honestly say the smile that was on my face was one that I'll always remember. And third and finally, on a World of Warships related note, attending the British Community event in London in November. It was an absolutely fantastic event in which I got to meet several players and some members of Wargaming's EU team. Now as for what you can expect from me in 2019, you can expect the same outputs as in 2018. A War Thunder video one week, a World of Warships video the next week. However, I am looking into potentially making some tutorial focused videos to help explain my thought processes, tactics, ideas, or to put it simply, why I play the way I play. I'm also looking to attend more community events for both War Thunder and World of Warships, and perhaps even 1 or 2 military shows. I've had the pleasure of meeting several of you at said events in the past, and it'd be great to continue that trend. As a result, as soon as I know which shows I plan to attend, I will let you all know. And the final thing I'd like to say is thank you for continuing to support me throughout 2018, whether it be through YouTube, Reddit, Patreon, or on the forums. I hope you've all had a good Christmas, and I wish you all a happy new year. But until next time, as always, take care, and good luck on the battlefield.